series of presentations by the library and the Climate Action Committee. I'm going to go over some odds and ends and then give you an overview of what to expect, and then we'll get into the meat of the thing. First I want to thank some people. I want to thank the library, Tricia, Justine, Peter, Courtney, Maggie, probably others I'm forgetting who we couldn't have done this without them, not only the space, but they've done a whole lot of work to get this going. I want to thank Stop and Shop for donating food, and I also want to thank Austin Smith at the Community Center who managed to pull off some childcare. I don't know if it's being used today. We don't know if we'll be able to have that in the future, so if anyone has some great ideas on how we can provide childcare for future events, let us know. We would love to be able to offer that. Let's see. The library is taping this, and the people who will be seen are the people talking up here, and then the library will be putting it on their YouTube channel, so if there's stuff you miss and you want to review it, or you know people who would be interested, you will be able to see it. Masks are not mandatory. We are encouraging people to wear them. There's lots of masks out in the before you come in the door, or if you're realizing you're sitting next to someone who doesn't have one and you're not comfortable, find a seat a little farther away. Let's see. So the overview of today, I'm going to talk for a little bit about the Climate Action Committee, and then I'll turn it over to Maggie Downey, who's the Cape Light Compact Administrator, and she will give us more information on what Cape Light Compact is, what they offer, and then the presentation on electrifying and decarbonizing your home and business. Let's see. After that, we'll have time for questions and answers. I didn't ask if you would like to have interruptions during it or wait till after.
You know, if somebody has a question on a slide,
Okay.
I'll stop because there's a lot of stuff. And
Okay.
it's hard sometimes when you're going through things to remember. So if somebody has a question on the slide, raise their hand. I think that's the best way rather than trying to remember what's in it.
Right. Okay, so if everyone got that, if you have a question on the slide, raise your hand, interrupt. So the Climate Action Committee was formed after an annual town meeting in 2019, when as a town we voted to require the select board to start a Climate Action Committee. The mission and purpose is to investigate, study, and make recommendations to the select board, residents, and businesses on decreasing greenhouse gases and on mitigating and adapting to the effects of climate change. At present, there are 3 members and an alternate, and myself as a volunteer. Carol Harris is our chair.
Hi.
Rebecca
Thank you for
Bruin
being here.
at the table there is our co-chair. Fred Gechter, who's here in spirit, is the alternate member, and Lily Flanders is out of state at the moment, but she's also a member. And she's watching us. Rebecca and Lily managed to set up a Zoom thing, so she's, hello Lily. I also want to acknowledge Bob Higgins-Steele, who was a member of the Climate Action Committee and is still involved in the Energy Committee and works closely with us. We would love to have more members and volunteers. Probably all the committees would say that. I've been a volunteer since last spring sometime. So at the risk of seeming too enthusiastic, this is a really great group of people to work with. They're smart, dedicated, committed, have a sense of humor, and are incredibly, genuinely welcoming and open to new members and new ideas and input. So if you have a little or a lot of extra time, looking for something to do, want to make a difference, consider working with the Climate Action Committee. In the back of the table, there's information on how to find out more about us, including everyone is welcome to sit in on virtual meetings, which are at this point monthly. So, let's see, future presentations, this is the first in a series, we'll go through June with monthly presentations and then take a break for the summer and hopefully start up again in the fall. We'll be, next month in February, the focus will be on electric vehicles. I think it's actually gonna be kind of fun, we'll have a panel of people who have electric cars, so they can tell us what their decision-making was, what it's like to own it, and how they charge it, and all that good stuff. We will have a session on photovoltaic or solar panels, landscaping and gardening. What does it mean that Truro is a green community? What Truro has already done, is doing now, and plans to do. We're also in March going to have a session on the state. The state has new building codes for new buildings and major renovations. The reason that's relevant for everyone is that we'll be voting at the town meeting on there's sort of two options. One of them's definitely going to happen, and one could be a little greener. So it'll be a chance to learn more about those options. The two biggest sources of greenhouse gases on the Cape are transportation and housing. And we have to do a whole lot better than we're doing at reducing or eliminating that. So, with that in mind, here is Maggie Downey, who is the Cape Light Compact Administrator. Thank you.
So just a couple things, I have one other handout if anybody wants a copy of my slides. I'll also email them to you so that you have them. There's an awful lot of information I'm going to go through. And please feel free to stop me. I am not the expert. I'm not an engineer. I know as people, my husband says, you know, just about, a little about everything to be dangerous. So again, if you have really in-depth questions, I'll take that back and have staff who are way more smarter and more qualified than I am to answer it. I bought a bunch of stuff. Please help yourself. It was on the table outside. These are LED night lights. I love these. I leave them in my hall, in the bathroom, especially with company. They only draw electricity. Unlike the old night lights that you had to turn on and off or take them out, these only use electricity when it's actually dark. They have a photo cell in them, so help yourself. And I also bought some insulated grocery bags. I know everybody has them, but I mean, they fall apart, so please feel free. If anybody wants these, they're on their way out. So thank you, as everyone said, for the introduction. My name is Maggie Downey. I live and work on the Cape. I was fortunate enough be in the right place at the right time, to date myself, back in 1995, when the town, Barnstable County, which is all of Cape Cod, formed an energy committee, and we were getting ready for the 1997 Restructuring Act. And my county commissioner said to me, you're going to do this. And I, being a smart person, I said, sure. And it's been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life. I learn something new every day. Energy, for those of you who are in the field or know about it, is constantly changing. It's exciting. Can be frustrating at times because, as we talked about, all of our climate goals, we have a lot to do. I'm going to touch on a myriad of things. So like I said, if you have a question, raise your hand and we can stop on it. So I thought it would be a good idea to explain who the Cape Light Compact is. The Cape Light Compact is the town of Truro. The town of Truro is the Cape Light Compact. We, all 15 towns on the Cape, voted at town meetings, again dating myself back to 1995, 96, and 97, to become a municipal aggregator. And then we joined together, and then the 6 towns on the vineyard joined with us. So we've been the Cape Light Compact since 1997. We reorganized under the Municipal Modernization Act of 2016 as a joint powers entity. So kind of like a special purpose district for those of you who are policy wonks or follow government, like a fire district or a water district. But we, the town of Truro is a member along with every town on the Cape and all 6 towns on the vineyard. And we're a public body, so we're subject to all of the public rules, public records, open meeting law. We were the first municipal aggregator in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has 351 cities and towns. There are now 140 municipal aggregators and another 45 pending in front of the department. But we are the only group of cities and towns that join together as a regional entity. Most of the others are one-offs, and we are the only group of towns that run the energy efficiency programs. So just a little bit of history, why we formed the Cape Light Compact and why we became involved. It's a group of very, 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 very smart, environmentally conscious and committed elected officials, your boards of selectmen back in 1995, saw an opportunity. They were concerned. We've always paid into energy efficiency funds. There's always been that little charge on your electric bill goes back into the 1980s. What they saw is the monies that were being paid by all of the ratepayers on the Cape and Vineyard were not being reinvested here. They were going over the bridge into a larger company. And they wanted to make sure that all of the energy efficiency funds that we pay for every month on our bill, because these are your programs, this is our money, were going towards programs that were designed, what our community wanted, and that were reinvested here. And then the second piece, and I'm not really going to talk about that much today, but I'd be happy to answer questions afterwards, was power supply. They saw, it was supposed to be competitive deregulation, competitive markets. We're all going to save a lot of money on our electric bills, pennies, on your lives. And what they saw was individual customers were going to have a harder time negotiating with suppliers to make sure that they had consumer-friendly conditions. So they wanted the towns, through the Cape Light Compact, to negotiate terms and conditions of a contract. Not all about price, it's about how green is it, are there any fees? So that's really the history of the Cape Light Compact. We do three primary things, I already told you: power supply, energy efficiency. 99% of our time, our staff spend work on the energy efficiency field. The power supply is literally negotiating a contract every several years and providing answers and assistance on that. The bulk of our work is in energy efficiency. And then we also do consumer advocacy, which is a regulatory. We make sure anytime that there's a proceeding at the Department of Public Utilities, we have a seat at the table and are advocating for local interest. And basically that means that any costs that are being regulated or decided are fair and equitable to our Cape and Vineyard ratepayers. So we've come a long way since the 1997 Restructuring Act. We had the 2008 Green Communities Act, which Truro is a green community. Every town on the Cape, with the exception of Barnstable, is either approved or in the process of being approved as a green community. And every town, all 6 on the Vineyard, are green communities. So in 1997, we had a big lapse. 2008, we formed the Restructuring Act. The Green Communities Act. That also significantly changed the energy efficiency world, because prior to that we had a very small budget, about $5 million a year for the entire Cape and Vineyard. 2008 Green Communities Act said, you, Cape Light Compact, have to pursue all cost-effective means of reducing energy before supply, which means before you build a big plant. It also created a statewide energy efficiency plan. So the Cape Light Compact went from just have a small plan, small budget, to having to participate in a statewide multi-million-dollar plan that is approved by the Department of Public Utilities. We have a 3-year plan. It's a highly regulated, very different process than we started out in 1997. Two great things have happened since the passage of the Green Communities Act. One is the Climate Act, and the Climate Act has been updated 2018. It was just updated last 2022 legislative session, and it will likely be updated again. But what that did for energy efficiency, and that's what I'm going to talk about, partnered with the CECP and the Clean Heat Commission. These are things that if you read you might see in the paper and wonder what it's about. How does that impact us? It all impacts energy efficiency and how these programs that we're here to talk about, how you participate in them and how you access them. So the big one that came out of the Climate Act is it gave, energy efficiency was always about reducing your kilowatt hours. So, because the cheapest kilowatt hours is the one you don't use. And the Climate Act gave us a new goal. It helped us to pivot and to expand the programs and focus on greenhouse gas reduction. In fact, we now have a GHG reduction goal, not only on kilowatt hours energy efficiency, but GHG goals reduction. And the CECP, which was just released at the end of last year, set goals for electrification. Specifically, it requires 1 million homes in Massachusetts to be electrified by 2050, and about 400 million square feet of commercial space to be electrified by 2050. We need to do that as a way to reach the Global Warming Solution Act goals. I know there's a lot of policy and a lot of regulations, but it kind of sets the framework as why we're doing this. We have specific laws and regulations that have set standards that we have to meet. And George, you talked about it, you nailed it. For us, what are the two biggest GHG producers right now on the Cape? It's our buildings and it's our vehicles. And believe it or not, I have an easy job. Big buildings are much easier to address than transportation. Transportation is going to be a tough nut. It's going to be a tough nut because we have a long way to go in EV. We'll get there, and it's going to happen much quicker than the transition in energy efficiency, but those are our two biggest challenges in the climate space facing the Cape. So energy efficiency, how do we start? It all starts with the home energy assessment. Qualified, has anybody not had an home energy audit? A couple of people. So if you haven't had it, there is plenty of information. I encourage you to call our 800 number. It goes right to our offices in Yarmouth, and then we'll send you a schedule out for home energy assessment. So basically what happens when you have a home energy assessment is we will send out a qualified energy specialist who will give you a whole home assessment and look at opportunities for air sealing, which is on your sill, all the cracks in the door, weatherization, which is insulation. They're also going to look at your heating system and their efficiency. Is it operating safely? So they could do a combustion test if you're heating with oil or propane. And then they will provide you with a report with recommendations on what to do. We'll talk a little bit about the incentives. For weatherization, the program pays 75% of the cost, the homeowner pays 25% of the cost, and I'm going to talk about heat pumps and other electrification measures and go over the new incentives. But we provide generous incentives. We also have a heat loan, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides, to help you navigate. These programs are available for whether you own your home or business, or whether you rent your home or business. Whether you're income eligible, that's going to be 60% below the state median income, moderate income, or whether you're at a market rate customer. And depending upon your income level, the incentives will vary. So weatherization, again, no cost air sealing. So they'll come in, they'll address the sill, any cracks along windows, and help you tighten up that house. It says 75% off. It's 75% of the cost is covered by the program. If you're income qualified, 100% of your audit is paid for. And in addition to your audit, they're going to replace your appliances, your heating system, and there are funds also for those that are income eligible for some home repairs, such as replacing roof, etc. The goal here for income eligible is they're combining all of the funds. So we work with Housing Assistance Corporation, that is the vendor, to make sure that they're tapping into federal funds as well as our funds, our energy efficiency funds. In the back, I left some slides about income eligible. It's not about your assets. This is about what you filed on your taxes. We have a lot of retirees that are living, a lot of municipal employees who are retired 5 years ago. Their average pension might only be $22,000 a year. So it's about your income to find out whether or not you qualify and what you qualify for. So I encourage you to look at it for yourselves, if you have friends or neighbors. And I hear this a lot, there are people who are in need this more than me. I don't want to take it away from somebody. You're not taking away from somebody. Remind them, you pay for these programs. So you're actually not accessing your investment. So this is a good way to get a return on your investment, especially if you fall into either the income eligible, below 60, or moderate income programs. So electrifying your home, and just one more thing on the income eligible. If you are income eligible, that's 60% or below. You need to encourage people to sign up through Eversource, which is a distribution company, for the utility discount rate. That is a 36% reduction off of your total electric bill, going up on July 1 to 42%. That is a significant saving, especially as I'm going to talk about electrics in your home. So again, By law, Eversource is required to, if you call up and disclose that I am income eligible and eligible for this rate, they will put you on that rate immediately. Then they will send you a lot of paperwork, and your council on aging, there are people here to help you will help to fill out that paperwork, but you can get on that rate right away. And that is some, again, instant savings before we can get out to your home to do any of the weatherization. So heat pumps. I told you we have to electrify 1 million.
That rate discount from Eversource is.
And I should have said, I am hearing impaired and I cannot hear anything you're saying, so I'm sorry, I'll have to have people help me with the questions. Should have said that before I started.
That rate discount from Eversource is supposed to be on the entire bill?
Yes.
Because I think it's only on the distribution.
No, it's the entire bill.
Okay.
It is not the distribution, it's the entire bill. Doesn't matter who your supplier is, whether it's Cape by Compact, another competitive supplier. Sometimes I feel like my favorite Martian when I'm just like tuning in. It's the entire bill. So electrifying your heating and cooling system can reduce your carbon footprint. That is, for all of us on the Outer Cape, you're either propane, oil, or electric resistance heat. Full disclosure, I was one of those 1972 homes, ranch style, all electric resistance heat, and I made the switch to heat pumps, and I can talk a little bit about that when we get on there. But heat pumps, the heat pumps of your parents or your heat pumps of 10 years ago are not the heat pumps of today. They have improved in efficiency, and sizing and installations are much different. So some people are like, oh, I don't install them, I had a bad experience. Really push back and talk to your HVAC installer. We are working very closely with the tech schools to bring up the, sometimes traditional, your plumber, or your HVAC contractor may be a little reluctant to install something because they're different. It's a different technology, but it's a cleaner technology. And as we green up our grid, meaning we're bringing in our offshore wind, bringing in maybe some hydro, we will be moving away from how we produce electricity now, which is with combined cycle natural gas plants, so that the electrification of our homes is paired with that. Right now, we're a little out of sync. We don't have any significant renewables for the grid, but we're getting slowly but surely advancing in heat pumps. And they use less energy overall than an oil, propane, or electric resistance system. I have a graph here, that's why I have the handouts, if anybody else wants that, Georgie, to show you. It just shows you here the average CO2 emissions. The heat pump is down here in green, and this is actually based even on the existing production of electricity, which is primarily combined cycle natural gas plants. So this is only going to get better over time. That line is going to go down lower and lower as we bring in more renewables onto the grid. So, and you can see the different electric resistance, oil, propane, and then natural gas. There's no natural gas out this way.
Sorry,
We'll talk about that.
Could you go back, which is the propane one?
which is the propane.
Which is propane? Okay,
Yeah.
hold on.
Third one down.
Propane's purple. So it's right there.
And the oil's above it.
Oil's above it, and then electric resistance. And it's about the efficiency. You think electric, it's electric, a heat pump's electric. Why is it? It's the efficiency of this system and how much energy is required to produce the same amount of heating capacity. I'm really getting out of my element. I'm listening to my own engineers for the two systems, which is why they're so different. Because I was like, that doesn't make any sense when I looked at it, so I had to have it explained to me in language that I could then talk to my mother and explain to her what it meant.
Is electric resistance like old style baseboard?
Yes. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So I told you I installed heat pumps, but not every house is going to be a perfect candidate. Now at a ranch, we have an open living room, but as we have cassettes, heads. And again, different type of cassettes have evolved since I did it in 2017, which is over 6 years ago. I think we did it in January of 2017. So different houses may require you to leave in a baseboard. I left in the electric resistant baseboard in my bathrooms. My husband likes the bathroom warm. And the head, you can't put a head in your bathroom, and it doesn't even circulation, it wasn't warm enough. So we left those in. So there are different options that you need to think about. Every home is unique. So retrofitting especially, if you're not doing new construction, is going to take working, have your audit, work with a professional HVAC contractor, somebody who is comfortable and knows how to install a heat pump to make sure you get the system that works best for you. So this is actually these were not available now, so depending upon the type of technologies or the layout of your house, you can have a heat pump rather than a cassette. You also have options for something that looks more like a traditional radiator depending upon your home. So a whole house heat pump, that means that you are going to make the switch off of oil or propane or electric resistance. In order to participate in the compacts programs, there's a couple of steps you need to do. First, you need to complete and implement your weatherization recommendations, because you don't want to oversize your heat pump. It's only going to cost you more, it's going to work harder, and not be as efficient. So you want to tighten up that house, weatherize, insulate where possible, and you also want to, they need to be sized appropriately. You need a manual J calculation, which has to be done by your HVAC contractor. Pre-existing heating systems must either be removed, disconnected, or only used in the case of emergency. That's for a whole house, and I'm going to talk about that so in a second, because you can have, I think somebody were talking about, you can have dual controls where you leave your existing oil or propane system in, but you set it where it only kicks in at a certain temperature. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the myths that you hear with heat pumps. And a big important, home must be occupied full-time during the winter heating season. What we don't want to do is we're not putting in expensive air conditioners for people who don't live here year-round. That's a whole, they still have access to a rebate, it's just not the whole household rebate. And we can tell by your usage. I mean, if you don't have any if you've got 100 kilowatt hours or less in December, January, February, March consistently, it's a second home. You're not living here year-round. It only takes 1 year, so if somebody said, well, I'm moving down here, you need to have a year of usage that documents that it's a year-round house for the whole home rebate.
Can I ask you a question before you move on?
Any other questions?
Yeah, what's the price range for like a 1,600 square foot home? Like what's the price range for a whole heat?
So prices will vary, and they're all over the map, and this is like the worst because with everything, we've seen prices increase almost 25% pre-COVID. We're hearing that they're coming down. So you're looking at a whole home rebate. You said about a 1,700 square foot home. I did mine. I have an 1,800 square foot ranch.
Okay.
Did 3 heads, 2 condensers, and it was about, I had to upgrade my electric panel, and it was around 15 grand in 2017. It was a lot of electrical work that had to be done. So you're going to see at the low end, 15,000. I'm also seeing some whole house come in around 26, 27, 28,000 because it's depending upon the house. So it's really hard. What I encourage you to do, and for the heat one, is to get 3 quotes and have somebody and make sure they know. Ask questions. Have they installed heat pumps before? People who have heat pumps, they love them. It's just like your electric vehicle. It's like, I love this car. So my best recommendation is if you see somebody, a neighbor, a friend, ask them, who did you work? Did you think they did a good job? Were you happy? Et cetera.
Maggie, that slide you had prior to this one, that showed, do you get one of those per room or one per level? Or
Again, it depends upon the makeup of your house. For that design, that's designed to replace like a radiator, so it could be 1 per room. But it depends upon the house. Some people have ducted. You can do ducted systems. So again, that's why I'm saying you need to bring out the HVAC to look at what you have now.
Can you just clarify when you talk about the heads and the cassettes, what are those pieces you're talking about?
Okay, so this is a condenser. This is the piece that's outside. And here's a couple of good things. They need to be elevated. You see stuff that was done maybe 15 years ago where they're sitting on the ground. They're not capable of functioning. It's an exchange of air, so they need to be, and believe it or not, it does snow. Use the snow around here. So this is up on, you want it on a cement platform. Can you see? Well, maybe better on this side. You want it on a cement platform. You also want it up and elevated on a frame. So that's the condenser that sits outside. It's a big fan, and that's where you exchange air. Wintertime, it takes in warm air, heats it, and it comes out a cassette. I think I have another, I'll show you on another slide. So, but there are different types, all based on your house design, pricing, etc. But just a couple of things, you don't want it to be planted in front of a bush or anything. So it needs space. And just for those of you who are noise sensitive, I would not recommend attaching it to the side of your house. Some people do, and they've had issues. So it depends upon your own. You can do it. There's nothing wrong engineering-wise, but I've heard from other people that that there's a vibration. But just be aware. And the compact. I have staff members who just work on these things. That's their job. They work on heat pumps and rebates, and they talk. So if you have any questions, we're here to help. Just give us a call, and we can walk you through it. So customers in 5-unit complexes or 1 to 4 are also eligible for heat pumps. And we have integrated controls, and I talked about that. So you can set it so that, there are lots of people and some technicians or HVAC contractors who say they don't work below 40 degrees, which is not the case, especially with new high-efficient heat pumps. As I said, my house, I have heat pumps. It was installed 3 days before that 2017 blizzard. I don't know if you remember, we had freaking feet of snow. My house is warm. My house is, I'm comfortable in it. But some people, as the older we get, they like a house really warm, and they can leave their existing system in, put on integrated controls, such that if the house or the outside temperature ever, because they function into single digits and below zero. But when you get to be below zero, which doesn't happen very often, there you will notice a degradation and a difference between your very inefficient but warm existing heating system and a heat pump. So those are the type of choices that you need to talk about, and really have frank conversations about how you like your home heated. We very have those types of below zero weathers, but they're all over Vermont, they're all over Maine, and they're much colder than we are here on Cape Cod. So we have different types I talked about. We have air source, you can have a central and a mini split. A mini split or cassette, you see them all over, they're on the wall. People either love them or hate them. It depends upon your aesthetic value. Some people cannot, there's no way that's going on my wall, and they will opt for either what we talked about that looks like more radiator, or they might have a ducted system that can use the existing ducts. I already told you, it moves heat from outside air to inside air in the winter and the reverse in the summer. The beauty, what I love, other than the heat, what I love most about my heat pumps is they dehumidify my house. I threw away so many things in a closet that used to get moldy, and running dehumidifiers all the time is no fun. So they provide some added, not just air conditioning for cold, but they also will take a lot of the moisture and help any mold problems or anything else that you may have in your home. We also have ground source heat pumps.
Which one do you have at your home? The air source? The ground?
What?
Which one do you have? Which type do you
Oh,
have?
I have a mini split, which
okay.
I have the condensers outside, and I have, yes I do, the cassettes on my wall, because I have a low aesthetic value, they don't bother me. but I love them. I'm very happy with them. I like the way they heat my home, etc. But again, know your house, know what you like, know what kind of heating system, and talk to people who have these. And lessons learned, I was talking to somebody earlier, and they have their heat pump, and you've seen them sometimes going up the side of a house to a second story. That line, because it's moving, it was right, and their bed the headboard is right next to it, and they hear it. So again, have conversations like that, because maybe you could have put it on another wall and it would not have been an issue. Ground source heat pumps are also eligible for significant rebates. Ground source heat pumps are in the ground. They're an expensive retrofit. You usually see most people doing that when they're doing new construction, but we've got sandy soil here. And somebody in my neighborhood did one a couple of years ago. It was about $20,000 to install the ground source heat pump. It's the most efficient. It's using the earth to cool and heat your house, but it's also the most expensive.
Is that the same as geothermal?
Yes, sort of, but it's a kind of, yeah, it's a little different technology, but it's the same concept. You're running tubes of water and the earth is heating and cooling the water. So again, you're digging up and installing pipes, tubes where the water runs through and then it gets piped into your house. Air to water, this is the least common, and I think you're going to see, and again, I can't tell you because technology is changing so much, we're starting to see a lot of research into air to water heat pumps, especially for commercial spaces. And again, it's the least common that you'll see around here. It'll be hard pressed for a home to have an HVAC contractor come out and quote you for one of these. Excuse me, but it does the same thing, concept, moving heat from outside air and heats water, which is pumped through radiators. This is a great technology for those that have the radiant baseboards along that. It's the same concept, very expensive and is evolving more and more. So here are the rebates for heat pumps. And true confection, that is my house, and I had to remove all of the, so that's my condenser outside, and had to remove all of the foliage. It just popped up after they put it in, and I, didn't even think about it, but we had to go out and remove and transplant all that because it's interfering with the functioning of that. So air source heat pumps, a whole home rebate is $10,000 per home. So depending upon the size of your house, you could be looking at more than 50% or less. If you've got a $25,000 heat pump, we're going to give a $10,000 whole home rebate. If you're doing a partial home, meaning when you do a whole home rebate, as I talked about earlier, you have to do a couple of things. You either have to remove, you either have to remove the existing heating system, or you sign a waiver that says we will only use it in emergency, meaning it got too cold, something happened, it wasn't functioning, or you're installing integrated controls. So that's up to the individual homeowner for whole home rebates. Those are your three choices. Air to water heat pumps, same thing, $10,000 per home. If you're doing partial, meaning you're using it mostly for air conditioning and maybe you're going to use it in the shoulder season for heat, it's $1,250 per ton, which relates to about a $3,500 to $5,000 rebate for your heat pump system. And again, depending upon how the size, your costs go down as well.
Is the rebate related to income or no?
Pardon?
In this case, is the rebate related to income?
These are market rate rebates, and my next slide I'm going to talk about. These are if you make more than 81% of the state median income. And I put there's a handout there, and then on our website we go into further details. Single family, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 person home. We do all the income verification in-house. It's easy. It's basically we usually have somebody either bring in or email their tax returns that document what shows their income. We income qualify you. We encourage you. We try to move along also on the electric discount rate. So these are market rates. These are not the rebates. If you are below 60% of the state median income, there is no cost to you, because you've already paid for this for the last 15 years on your electric bills, for replacing your heating system. Let's be clear, we'll come in and we'll do all of the home energy assessment, we'll look at your appliances. Appliances include refrigeration, dishwashers, clothes washer, and a dehumidifier, as well as your heating system. If you are moderate income is going to be 61 to 80, and again I'll have a slide and the numbers are back there. We will pay 80% of the cost of replacing your heating system. So to answer that question, if it's 20, I have to make me do math. If it's $20,000 heating system, you're on the hook for $4,000, right? Did my math right? $20,000, 80% paid for by the fund. You're paying $4,000 And we're gonna talk about how do you finance that? How do I come up with that $4,000 in a second? So, Mass Save, the heat loan. And again, Mass Save, we're required to put this on. Mass Save is the Cape Light Compact working together with all of the other program administrators who run these programs across the state so that there's a brand, it's really a branding. We own the brand so that it's, wherever you go, if you talk to somebody about energy efficiency in Massachusetts, you mention Mass Save, it's the same programs. Compacts programs, because we're a municipal aggregator, we tend to do things like to think better, but a little bit push the envelope more of what we offer. So, up to $25,000 it's a 0-interest 7-year loan to help you finance your energy efficiency improvements. That $25,000 excludes the heat pumps. So if you have a home and you've never participated and you're gonna need weatherization and you're gonna need a whole bunch of other work, and you're gonna do a heat pump and the total cost comes out, and you're not moderate income, so you're above that line, you can finance up to $50,000 if you're including the heat pump. We've just included that because of the cost of what we're seeing for heat pumps. People are coming in and saying, my heat pump's $35,000 with my installation. So we've increased the top to only when you're including a heat pump, electrifying, decarbonizing your home. So again, lots of banks on the Cape. It's a 0-interest 7-year loan. We take our energy efficiency dollars and we buy down the interest rate. That's how we make it 0-interest to you. You can also, as I talked about, you finance your electric panel upgrade. My house, even though it was all electric, in order to accommodate a heat pump, I had to upgrade my electric panel. At that time, it was close to it was about $3,500. We will fund up to $5,000 to upgrade any of the electrical upgrade panels that you need. You have to qualify for a heat loan, means you have to have good credit and you have to be eligible and be able to get a loan from the bank. Any questions on heat loan? And again, this is only if you are not low income eligible, below 60%, because there's no cost to you. And if you're moderate income, and you've got to finance that difference, $4,000 for the heat pump, you can use the heat loan as well. For a heat loan, you need to make sure that you've had a home energy assessment, because we're going to check, and that you implemented all of the recommended measures. So if they said insulate your house 2 years ago, you haven't done it yet, in order to get the heat loan, that's gonna stop, like a stop right there. Go back, finish implementing the recommended measures. You can also do virtual assessments. We adopted this during COVID, where you walk through. It's hard, you've got to take photos of but it can be done. If you're not comfortable with somebody coming into your home, you want to start the process, you can do a virtual online assessment using your smartphone to take photos and pictures of existing heating systems, etc.
Say you had an energy audit 5 years ago, is that gonna be?
And you did all the recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
That's, that when you call the 800 number, just to say, I had somebody 5 years ago, and
Check
we
it
did
out.
everything, you signed the contract, we can verify all of that.
And what
which is
would be
pretty
the
easy.
time frame? I guess,
Pardon?
like it was 10 years ago? There's gotta be a cutoff, so to speak.
Measures, that's a good question, I don't have an answer. So if you've done something, because we've been around since 2000 running energy efficiency programs, if your house has already been insulated and that, call the 800 number and we'll talk to staff. It could do the
Okay.
virtual assessment and verify it, or we could just pull records and have the contract, and
Last
not
time
be
they
there.
came, they said I did everything, I don't need to do
'Cause
anything
we
more,
have to
here's the light bulbs.
Yeah, we have to verify before we send it off to, we work with our vendor, which is Rise Engineering, to verify eligibility. So, and again, that's the beauty of these being local programs, just call us. If you're like, they're giving me a hard time, I did everything, just call, and we'll do the best we can to move forward.
Can I follow up on that question? And so we did our home energy audit 4 or 5 years ago, and it was great. The auditor was great. We did everything recommended, insulation, doors and windows. We added the solar panels, but we still have our propane hot water heat system. And the auditor said, there's not much we can do about that. And so that's where we are right now. And I'm wondering, is there some place that we can go, somebody we can sit down with and say, invite to our house and say, here's our house. How can we adjust things so that we can be more energy efficient, maybe even go to heat pumps, although, you know, it's a weird house, so maybe.
I think that if you want, I'll give you my number, and you can give me a call, and I'll have
Good.
I'll have Dan have a conversation with you, and bring out a technician to see what can we do. You know, because I've said it a couple times, every house is unique, and it's gonna require, if this is not cookie cuttering, which is why this goal is hard.
And it sounds like the technology's changing
Technology's come a
quickly.
long way, and, you know, I'm using a wild example. Maybe you've got the property for a ground source heat pump, and now that we have, I think it's $30,000 rebate, and it might be something that you're interested in doing. So, I'll give you my card, and we can, give me a call, and I'll make sure that you connect with staff that can talk about it.
To what she was asking, I had an assessment done in 2019, and we're just finally getting things moving along, and we were told we had to have a reassessment this year. We had to have a reassessment this year in order to qualify.
So they required you, did you,
Yes.
even though you implemented all the measures?
Well, we were in the process of doing it, and they said because it was from more than 2 years ago, you had to get another assessment
And they processed your heat loan.
to get everything moving, to do the
And you
heat
had-
pumps, the heat loan, all that.
Thank you. That's not my understanding. You should be, especially if you implemented everything at the time of your original audit. And she's saying you didn't do that, you did it over
No.
time. Okay,
No,
maybe
we-
that's why you had to have that, they came out to assess it to make sure everything was done. Okay, that's the difference. All right. So, on the website, we have all kinds of tools. There's a heating calculator, so you can take your existing oil, propane, or electric resistance bill, plug it in, square footage, it will help you determine what are my bills gonna look like, is this a good thing? Right now, with the cost of oil and propane and electric resistance, it's a no-brainer. The one fuel that it is not cost competitive, I'm not talking about greenhouse gas reductions, is natural gas. There is no natural gas out here, so it's not an issue. But if you heated with natural gas, you would be moving into an overall higher energy cost. Lowering your carbon footprint, but it comes with, it's a price. But all of the other three fuels, this will be more cost effective. There's also tips for how to, ducted heat pumps. They're different. You have to you do clean and tunes. We have the screens that we rinse every twice a year. We just open up the cassette, and we put it in the sink and just hose it off. I have, and I'm pretty faithful. I always have the contractor come out at least once a year and do a clean and tune. But again, on our website, they'll give tips for that. So again, I've been talking a lot about the income guidelines. You can see them here. They're on the back. So 100% weatherization, enhanced offer for heat pumps, upgrades, so for 80% to 100% if you're in this column, 80% if you fall into the enhanced residential. Again, this is not about your assets, it's about your gross income. Heat pump water heaters, another way to help decarbonize your home, lower your carbon footprint, and get rid of propane or electric resistance, and install heat pump water heaters. There is a rebate for any of these systems. Anytime you're going to take advantage of a Cape Light Compact rebate, make sure you go to the website and check to see what type of equipment, the efficiency of the equipment that is required for the rebate. If your contractor says this, double check, have him or her say, is this within the guidelines for efficiency? Last thing you want to do, spend a lot of money because contractor had an older system, wasn't efficient, wasn't eligible for a rebate, and it was installed. Again, if you have any questions, you can always, the easiest thing, take a photo of things, call the Cape Light Compact staff, and just say, is this the right piece of equipment? Heat pump water heaters have to be in a certain space. I wanted to install one, couldn't install one because my electric resistant water heater is in my garage in an insulated little closet. So I could not install it. They work best if you have a basement that you actually can, walk around in.
You need so many square feet of open area
Yes,
for the things
Because
to
it's a heat
work.
exchange, it's just
Yeah.
like the other condenser, you're exchanging air. Can't put it in a closet even, there were some early, when this technology came out, some people put it in and they didn't like it, and so they put louvered screen doors in it. Not as efficient, it doesn't work that way. So it needs to be, like if this was the basement, this would be a perfect space for a heat pump water heater. And again, it's not gonna work in every home, but it will work in a lot of homes.
I just wanna say too, you get the added benefit of dehumidifying. We used to have to run a dehumidifier in our basement, and when we got the heat pump hot water heater, we now have to find a new home for the dehumidifier.
One other point on these is that when we put ours in and I tracked our electric bills, it went down by close to 15% a month, just because of the water heater.
Yep. All
And I
great,
had an electric water heater before, but changing to this lowered my electric bill by
all
nearly
great
15%.
points, again, but you've gotta have the right space for installing these, and the right technician. The kids that are coming out of the tech now, they eat, sleep, and drink these things. My plumber, who's been a personal plumber for like 30-something years, I don't like that one, and I wanna do this, and this is efficient. So it's changing, just like every technology changes throughout our lifetime. Do you have a question?
I tried to get one, I have oil, and the water heater was running by oil, and there just seemed to be all kinds of drama about having to install electricity, and in the end, I just ended up with a new heater that does
Instant hot water, on
which I
demand,
guess maybe that.
on-demand hot water. I just had this conversation, because I asked Dan, I said, Dan, what's an on-demand hot water? They're not they're not efficient ways, they do give you on-demand hot water, but they're not as efficient. But I've heard from, especially on the Vineyard, I hadn't heard that people were having issues here on the Cape getting them, but on the Vineyard, we had huge supply issues in the last 2 years with price, people like contractors quoting, $2,000 and $3,000 to install a heat pump water heater. It's ridiculous, they're like $1,250, $1,500 at the most, and
I'm sorry,
again,
what is,
that type of feedback, I take back to staff and ask them,
And I didn't contact Cape Light, which I probably should have.
it's okay, that's why we're here, that's why we're talking about it, we might not have answers, we might end up in the same place, the only contractor that's gonna come out and install it in Provincetown is gonna charge you $3,000 for it, and it's an emergency. That's what happens a lot, when your water fails. It's nice to plan to get rid of your older, inefficient water heater system, but a lot of times, been there, done that, you wake up, I don't want water, and you walk out in the grocery, you need it right away, and you have to take the most efficient thing that's in stock, and traditionally, it hasn't been a heat pump water heater.
I'm sorry, I don't understand, how they work. Are they plugged into an electrical outlet?
They are piped and plumbed, and it's just like the condenser. It's exchanging, so the coils, you're taking air in your conditioned space, running it through the coils, and heating up the water with a fan. So I believe it has
But
to.
you still have, those panels on the front of the heater are for the electric water heater element. You still have the electric water
Electricity,
heater
it's still heated up
element.
to the electric, yes.
And as I was just saying, the heat pump is very slow on recovery.
So heating up the tank takes a long time.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are gonna run it on hybrid, so you're gonna need 220 to run the electrical.
A 220 outlet, like for your dryer.
Like where your old electric water heater was.
Right.
For that.
Thank you. Did you install one?
Yeah, I have.
And you like it?
I wasn't at my house.
Oh. Again, all of these technologies will help decarbonize your home. They're greener, they're more efficient. But sometimes you like what you like. And you really just have to talk to people about their experiences, the upsides, the downsides of everything that you're doing. Induction stoves. There is a $500 rebate to replace an existing propane-only, no such thing as an oil stove, with an induction stove. So there's some great. All the appliance stores are carrying them now. Must be pre-verified through a home energy assessment that you actually have a propane stove in the house. But we will replace, give you a $500 rebate, off of a stove. Key to remember, if you're going to go induction, you have to make sure your pots and pans work on an induction stove. So even though it looks like, a typical electric gas top, if you have, like me, old Farber pots, they're not gonna work. So that's another, you have to think about, that before you move to induction.
So why is that better than a regular electric stove? I have a flat electric stove.
So this one, induction stoves, you don't have that heat, I have an electric stove, and you get the little light on them, and they go red, and they're hot.
Mhm.
The way these heat with magnets, you don't get that burn, so that's why they have the child there. So that's why they have the child there, to show that it's not a danger, so it's not hot. And they heat with magnets, so they heat faster, and using less energy, so less electricity. So boiling water, the pot of pasta water, takes, I've been told, less than 50% faster to heat and to cook. And people who have them love them, but the reason I haven't done it is I like my pots and pans. See, again, it's a personal preference. You think Maggie should have all this stuff, but I like my pots and pans. I don't want to have to replace every pot and pan that I have. So certain things you have to really think, is this going to work for me? So if you have cast iron, if you have those fancy Califon, I think, I can't pronounce it, like Crusette. So certain things work with induction stoves. My, Macy's Farber pots don't work with induction stove.
I mean, you could just test it with a magnet, right?
Yeah,
you can,
yes,
you
exactly.
put a
That's how I
magnet on
did
your
it.
pot. If it sticks, then
Yeah, I
it
took
works.
my magnet because I wanted to know. I was like, do
Right.
pots work? And I was like, nah. Cast iron frying pan work. We're very particular to a tea kettle that we have. It doesn't work. I mean, it was actually a tea kettle. That was it. Steve's like, I'm not getting a tea kettle, but not a tea kettle. Decarbonizing your yard. Now, all the rebates for electric lawnmower, leaf blower, trimmer, and a chainsaw. I've heard really, really good things with people who have switched to the electric lawnmower. It's light, it folds down, they can move it, cuts the grass. You still have to sharpen the blades and do all the stuff you have to do with a regular lawnmower, but it's quiet and it doesn't weigh a ton.
And you don't have to be a mechanic to own one.
Exactly, exactly. The electric leaf blower is the same thing. The gas powers, they make a lot of noise, they're smelly. But all of our appliances, everybody's starting to carry these. You can do an online. These rebate applications are on the Compact's website and submit for the rebate. Sometimes you'll see with certain stores, we'll run like per point of purchase discounts where we build it in, but typically these are mail in a rebate and you get a check. Okay, so before I talk about CVO, there's lots of things and ways to decarbonize your home. The first thing, foundation, have a home energy assessment. Make sure your existing home is as safely tight as possible. You need, if you insulate your air seal, but you need windows, Heat Loan will fund a certain amount of windows. Again, there are restrictions on them, but you can replace your windows with your heat loan, your air sealing, your insulation. So tackle things one at a time. And then you can move to your heating system, and then you can move. If you've done all of those things, then your next step, if possible, you should be looking at installing on-site renewables, solar PV on your home, or if you've got a community solar project, participating in that to offset it. To get your house, if it's already an existing house, to net zero, it's decarbonize it and put on-site generation, which is going to be solar, to help you get that home to net zero. The project that I want to talk about, I've worked 5 years, and we finally got approval on January 11th, is CVEO. I'm just going to put it out there so you can spread the word. Cape and Vineyard electrification offering. So we are taking 100, we have a pilot project that we got approved for 100 natural gas heated homes, so down here it's not an issue, that are, 80 of them are going to be deed restricted properties for either low income or income eligible, and then 20 are market rate. If you are in a deed restricted home, and every town has housing, you know, we all have housing authorities, we all have affordable homes committees, trying to keep and retain our properties. It could be a Habitat for Humanity home, it could be something that the town owns or a nonprofit owns. We are offering CVO, which we will partner with the homeowner. We have to remove the existing all fossil fuels from the home, so that we have to remove the heating system, so if it's oil, propane, and we have to, and stove, and we will replace at no cost. CVO is getting that home to net zero, so it is coming in, doing, again, basic foundation of energy efficiency, heat pumps, and installing a solar PV system to support the increased electric use. And then in 25 homes that are good candidates, we're also going to be doing 2 batteries for resilience. So if you have homes, you know homes that are deed restricted, please send them to the Cape Light Compact, send them to Georgia as potential candidates. This project just got approved and it runs through December 31st of 2024 right now, unless we can get it extended. So again, deed restricted, we're doing low income, that's below 60, 50 homes, affordable, really clever on this one, even though it's typically 61 to 80, if the deed restriction says affordable, even though it might be 120% affordability, it's a deed restriction. Why is the deed restriction so important? Because these technologies are being given to the home, to the house at no cost. We can't have somebody then turn around and flip the home. We just invested all of our money on this property and somebody just walked away with a huge profit. So the intention is to decarbonize that house and have that house be decarbonized regardless of who lives there. And most deed restricted, affordable, or income eligible properties, you can sell your house. They usually say, yes, you can make some money on it, but it always has to be sold to somebody who's in that income eligible. Moderate income, that is in the 61 to 80%. Remember that income chart I just showed you? We are going to come in, and for the heat pump, we're going to pay 80%, but you have a maximum cap of $5,000. So again, to take out your oil or propane system, put in a new heat pump in the entire heating system, you pay $5,000. And we're going to give a $15,000 incentive for your solar PV panels, which roughly are going to run you based on about $25,000. So you've got $10,000 for your solar system, $5,000 for your heat pump that you have to finance through the heat loan, unless you have, most people living in moderate income are going to be cash strapped. So you can finance that through a 7-year no interest loan. Again, these are 100 homes that we're looking for. I just wanted to put the word out. We are just putting in all the paperwork, getting all the processes set up, and hope to roll this out this spring and let all of our communities know, and hopefully have eligible. We have lists from all the towns, but sometimes you might be just a home that's not on my list or on my radar, but you live in Truro, I don't, you know what's available.
Maggie, when you were talking about the batteries, do you mean installing batteries for the power generated by the solar?
So the goal, 25% of these homes, which are, 25 homes of the 100 are going to have 2 batteries. So that when the grid, just for those, when anyone has solar knows when the grid goes down, if you don't have a battery backup,
Or a
Tesla or an LG, all you got is a bunch of expensive glass on your roof. So the battery is your next, again, depending upon where you are in your decarbonization journey, your next step is to pairing your solar with the battery. So that when the grid goes down, you have battery backup. And you need 2 batteries when you have heat pumps, because it takes 2 batteries to run the heat pumps. Your solar PV, so it's again to get that house to be not only net zero, but also to have build in some resilience, so that if the power goes out for a period of time, you've got your solar panels powering your batteries, so that you'll have 4 to 8 hours depending upon the size of batteries. And you guess then we have to wait for the sunshine again to come back up to charge those batteries.
Do you have programs just for the batteries?
We do. You can finance your battery through the heat loan right now.
Okay.
So if you have solar PV on your house and you want to install batteries, you can finance the battery. There are no rebates, but you can take the heat loan to finance your battery.
Thank you.
How much
So
is
again, I'm really
batteries
excited
worth?
personally about this. I think it's an equity issue. Our low and moderate income customers are being left behind statewide. in installing renewable technologies. Law of unintended consequences, when we came out with solar, we had really, really rich incentives, and guess who really installed all the solar? All the rich people, who don't need the incentives. And now those incentives are gone, and we, very, very few low and moderate income customers have been able to install renewable energy. CVO is an attempt to level the playing field, and if this is a pilot project, so we have to report out to see what the results, see how it goes. And then I think that was my last slide. Yeah. Questions? I know I went through a lot of stuff. And again, I am not an engineer, I am a policy wonk. So if anyone has questions, take a card and I will make sure you talk to the right people who know way more about this stuff than I do.
You said 2 batteries would give you 45 hours?
4 to 5.
Oh, 4 to 5 hours.
Each battery, so 4 to 5. But why do I need 2 batteries? You need 2 batteries because to jumpstart that heat pump for heating purposes, 1 battery is not sufficient. So when we engineered and designed CVO, that was one of the things that we discovered before we rolled it out. We were originally giving everybody a battery, all 100 customers, until we realized that you need 2 batteries in order to have the heat pump be able to start. It's the amount of wattage that to get it, so we had to scale for cost, we had to scale it back. So there.
So, if you wanted a whole home thing, but you had, an either gas or wood burning, fireplace, would you have to get rid of your fireplace?
If you don't have to get rid of your fireplace unless it's propane. Because I am required to remove all fossil fuels. Now, nobody mentioned that, in the DPU, because we are this is a regulated program. Nobody spelled out, you gotta remove your propane insert, but the intent here is to decarbonize the house. So if it was wood burning, no. Propane, it's a good question. I'm gonna say I have to get back to you on that, but again, the intent of this is to decarbonize the home, but nobody has ever said that, because I think it's pretty unique.
How about a propane generator?
If you have a generator with propane, the generator is not a generator is not your heating system. So I would say you could leave your generator in place. We all know we all have generators. Mine's
Everybody has.
right, a gas one, you move it from room, then your refrigerator. So the generator does not count.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that propane. But if you do have a fireplace and you don't use it, you should make sure, and there's a rebate for it, you get a chimney balloon.
A chimney what?
It's a chimney balloon. I think the rebate is $30. You can find it on CLC's website. It is literally, blow it up, it fits perfectly inside the chimney. Because chimney is basically a big hole in your house. And if you're heating with it, yeah, it has a function. But if you're not using it, and you can deflate it. It's just literally easy to deflate. And then I only did it once. I didn't like the way it fit the second time. But we, a lot of us get older. We don't want to deal with wood anymore. So you got a chimney, just put a chimney balloon in there, and it's really effective at preventing the damp. I can remember some of the storms they had the glass things, and it was shaking like this. So put a chimney balloon up in your chimney.
Does it go in the fireplace? Does it go in the fireplace or inside the chimney?
It goes inside the chimney. Obviously, you can't leave it in there. If you put wood in there, you have to deflate it, but it does go in there, especially if you're not using your chimney. And I know you have a question.
Yeah, I've recently signed up for an audit. I have a condo in Boston and a house in Truro. And, one of the things that I wanted to do is to change, I have so many light bulbs, I just calculated it's gonna cost me $2,000. Why has Mass Save discontinued that benefit?
So we're a regulated program, regulated by the Department of Public Utilities, and the Department of Public Utilities has determined that the market has transformed. What does that mean? They said that means that right now, if you go to a store, you're going to find LEDs. And you're not going to find incandescent bulbs. So where you become what is called a free rider. You would have had to do it anyway. But I will say that right now, I believe, and I want you to call me on this, DPU said that it might have been 2022, so you might have just missed it, that we can still do lighting, but lighting is being phased out in this 3-year plan.
Phased it out in January.
December 31st, 2022, right? Yeah.
It's the boat.
Do you have just screw-ins or do you have, recessed cans?
But the incentives are built into, like if you go to Home Depot, right, there is already, or is that not the
If
case?
they've got them
Like
on
a
their
sort of a
shelves, they might
downstream?
still be there,
Yeah,
but we're not.
The reality is, I've priced it out, I mean, if you go to Home Depot, it's gonna be $5,000 for
Do you have, are they screw-ins?
Yeah, they're all, floods and stuff like that. And what they said was, well, depending for the technicians to bring all this stuff in their truck, like, well.
No, that's not why we're not allowed to do
Yeah.
them. We're not allowed to do them because we were
And
working.
the thing also, I have a condo in Boston, they go, you just don't qualify because you live in a condo.
Well, that's not our territory. We
Yeah.
serve when we become
No,
Let me, can you do me a favor, take my card, because I wanna ask Dan. I also have, if we still have lighting in stock,
Yeah, I know.
what am I, so that's why let's.
Yeah, right.
But the DPU did tell us that we have to stop, except for income eligible customers, we have to stop incentivizing lighting because the market has transformed. So, I mean, I get it, I understand it,
My
but,
issue is, I mean, I'm an engineer, okay, I got all this stuff that I tend to do, but it's sort of counterproductive, because it's an easy thing to get people
oh,
involved in
you
a
can't tell you
program.
how many times we've handed out light bulbs at Truro town meeting and
Right.
others, and people got it. But let me, do me a
Yeah.
favor, let me just,
It was a bad move.
right, let me just talk about, to see if Dan's got anything, if we have extra lighting in stock anywhere. I mean, even some of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, make sure you take a card from me and then call me about it. He may come back and say, I can't do it. If you do it now, maybe you can invoice me from December, because we're still paying December invoices. But I do know that the DPU said,
Yeah.
cut it out. And we fight, I argue all the time with the Department of Public Utilities, because we are not a utility. The reason why we run these programs is we're supposed to be able to do things that are responsive for our community, but we tend to get swept up because we're small compared to the big dogs out there. But anyway, I want you to take my card because I wanted to see if we have any light bulbs.
I wanted to know under the heat loan if it qualifies. We were told that, as most of the houses down here that were built in the 40s were built on cinder blocks, so you have a sand basement, basically. And we were told we had to have a certain percentage of the sand removed for the insulation under the house to qualify for us to get the rebates. Do they allow you to put that expense into the heat loan? We finally found a company who will do
called
it.
barrier mitigation. And you're allowed to finance a certain amount of barrier mitigation, and I believe it's up to $5,000. But again, that's a question, these are great questions, and I wanna have them answered by my staff that can tell me. But to me, that's a barrier mitigation, because you can't insulate until you do that. Just like you can't maybe electrify until you upgrade your panel. But it has a certain amount, it has a dollar threshold to it, and I don't wanna quote you on it, that's why call me. Yeah, really, seriously, call me about the lights, I wanna see. But I can't help you in your condo in Boston, but we should be able to.
Things are changing, it is.
Yep. And the 800, there are also business cards on the back table, that's our 800 number. It just brings in Yarmouth, so anyone else? I wanna thank you very much, you were very great artists. This is our money, these are our programs. Use them all frequently and spread the word. Thank you.
See you in February for electric vehicles.
See you.